Hello and welcome back to the channel. We're going to jump straight in here and attempt an economy run on Shell's V-Power, which is completely ethanol free in this part of the country, and see how much I can improve on the 41.9 miles per gallon I got over doing the test for weeks and taking an average. The tank has been run to fumes and has a fresh full tank of V-Power that I've been using anyway. If you've been watching the previous economy test videos, you may remember the issues I encountered doing mileage tests for the various petrol brands and types, so thought to take the result from a single day and without causing hold-ups for other road users, just to see what the very best I can get from the ST is, and hopefully give a couple of examples of driving tips you're probably not told by mainstream sources, as they don't follow conventional driving etiquette and are probably seen as slightly iffy. You may have heard of something called drafting, where you can gain a better drag coefficient by being in the slipstream of another vehicle, where in practical road use it's not really possible, as you have to basically be bumper to bumper with the car or lorry in front. There was an episode on Mythbusters a while back where they test this. I'm only overtaking this lorry as he's not maintaining speed, and it's more beneficial to keep at a constant for fuel efficiency purposes. The Fiesta's gear ratios make it very easy to keep the revs and thus its boost low, so getting up to speed isn't difficult, although how much you have the throttle pressed is directly related to how much fuel is being used. So much so that on cars with computer controlled multi-point fuel injection, including many cars from the early 80s, will use no fuel at all when the throttle is closed. This is provided that the car is in gear and motion, of course. It will use fuel to idle even when stationary, neutral, or when the clutch is pressed. Because of this, make full use of downhill gradients, and when approaching junctions keep off the throttle to slow down, but don't press the clutch in at all if you can help it until the very last moment you need to either downshift or stop. Try to downshift in blocks, so 6th, 4th and then 4th to 2nd, and try not to stop at a junction or roundabout if it's safe to do so. Ideally you want to not have to brake or slow down much at all, which is probably the first ill-advised of my tactics here, so copy me at your own risk. At this roundabout I'm doing something I hate seeing people do, but only when there's other traffic about. When there isn't, such as in this case, it doesn't really matter when you apex the lanes, which means you're aiming to cross over the 2 lanes of the roundabout, nearly touching the roundabout itself on the right and exiting as close to the curb on the left. This is the shortest and straightest route across the roundabout, meaning you don't lose as much speed. You'll notice as the traffic builds this morning, I stay in my correct lane at other roundabouts and only do this when I can. As before, I run the Goodyear Eagle F1s at a higher than recommended pressure, 35 psi on the front and 32 on the rear, over the suggested 31 and 26 psi respectively. I'm also carrying a tool set and some service equipment, but have removed the spare wheel and toolkit for that, so it's probably balanced out. Despite it being a hot summer's day, I didn't use the aircon once and only had the windows open a slight gap at lower speeds. On the dual carriageway areas I maintained around 56 miles per hour, which keeps the revs barely over 2000 RPM in 6, while still letting people pass. On the single carriageway I tried to keep to 50 miles an hour, but slowly increased speed to 60 if there was somebody approaching from behind, so as not to hold anyone up in their business. I'm keeping my distance from the cars in front so I can maintain a set speed and not need to brake until I really have to, which brings me to the second piece of Bohemian driving. Following distance is conventionally pushed for safety reasons, so you have plenty of stopping distance in case of emergency braking. I'm taking this to more of an extreme, as the goal when trying to save fuel is not have to brake at all. So I'm taking my foot off the throttle if I see the car in front slowing down, but instead of gently braking to keep the recommended following distance, I'm continuing to roll without braking at all, in hope that the traffic in front speeds back up. Even though this footage is played sped up, you may see me get a bit too close to cars in front, as I'm actually braking very hard when this does happen. Needless to say, along with apexing of lanes, this is very sloppy driving and shouldn't be attempted if you're inexperienced and not hypermiling. This is comparatively light traffic to the roadworks that were in this town, which affected the results of the last test runs I've shown in the previous economy video. But here I should note that the ST does not have a start-stop, nor am I turning off the engine. Either one will save a small amount of fuel as per an SAE Mobilis technical paper, Fuel Consumption Improvement of Vehicles by Idling Stock 2004, but in light traffic and the unpredictable traffic that I catch up with in a while, I didn't shut the engine off. What was lucky is that in both directions of this run, the traffic in front of me didn't slow down to 40 miles an hour for the, and yes I quote, holistic benefit of the residents from the Bright Study 2018 on this main road. Again, travelling at a constant and uninterrupted speed is more efficient than constantly having to change speeds and poses no legitimate danger or environmental damage despite what idiot councillors and road safety campaigners preach. Now there's a few different routes I can take to my first destination, and it's a crapshoot on which one happens to be rammed with traffic, mainly due to roadworks. Today was no exception, and I end up getting stuck here close to the Great Western Hospital in Swindon, where some idiot road workers, having already made a complete mess of this roundabout, while not improving staff and patient access to the hospital, decided to shut off a lane up ahead. So we have two lanes on this roundabout merge into one, but where people start to queue is anyone's guess. Remember, if lanes are merging, you must merge in turn. Nobody has right of way, regardless of the right merging to left or left merging to right. If you cause an accident by failing to allow somebody in the next lane who is ahead of you, and it doesn't matter if you've been queuing with the bulk of the traffic and others are seen as cutting in at the end, it will be your fault. On the flip side, once you've given way to a vehicle, it's now your advantage, so if somebody in their lane doesn't allow you in, a resulting collision would be their fault. I appreciate this is a weird roundabout, but if you're queuing in a traffic on one, try to let one person out to either drive in front of you to get to another exit or join the queue for yours. Now we see why this is idiotic. The lane has been shut while there's no active roadworks or productivity, thus lowering productivity for everyone else and affecting my fuel consumption at a time where I actually care about it. In the interest of privacy, I'm going to have to cut some of my destinations, but that's almost half of the trip done. Did it take longer to get here than normal? They say those of us who race around everywhere don't get there any quicker. Well, that's crap, as it took me 15 minutes more than the normal 1 hour. I'm heading back now, and it's after 6 PM, so rush hour traffic should have subsided. I'll fill up at the Shell station we started at and we'll work out the MPG of this run. So we covered 63.8 miles. It took me by surprise how quickly the pump clicked off. I usually wait a moment after the click, gently squeeze the pump trigger until a second click just to make sure that the tank is full. This time I inadvertently checked it twice, so I've probably added a dribble more than I began with. I refilled with only 5.19 litres, which we have to divide by 4.55, the number of litres in an imperial gallon. I'll show the US miles per gallon for any of my American audience too. This comes to 1.1 gallons. Apologies if you're seeing this again, as I've shown this equation on a few videos already. To work out our miles per gallon, divide the number of miles covered, 63.8, by the fuel used, 1.14 gallons, and that gives us an absolutely whopping and surprising 56 miles per gallon. Ford's own published combined cycle of 47.9 miles per gallon for this car doesn't seem so unrealistic now, although it should be stressed that I was driving with the utmost awareness of economy, rarely over 56 miles per hour or anywhere close to 3000 RPM while accelerating, plus the couple of unconventional methods I adopted. However, this was still a real world test as I'm carrying a few tools and I did get stuck in traffic while being generally lucky at a lot of junctions where I was able to pull out without stopping. Perhaps if I do this run again on a heavy ethanol blended cheap petrol, I might not hit traffic but be less fortunate at the junctions, so this was the idea of filming the whole run to show a fairer comparison. If this video proves to be popular, then I'll look to try it again with a different fuel type, such as the highest or perhaps cheapest ethanol blend I can find, to see what the best MPG is, or more importantly for many, if using the expensive higher octane works out to be cheaper overall. This cost me £8.51 at today's prices, but we'll take a note of the 95 octane price so we can make an adjustment for a fairer comparison in future, as the prices obviously fluctuate and will creep up with inflation. Until then, thanks very much for watching.